Starting with news from the United States. In the wake of surging violent crime across America, U.S. President Joe Biden has now laid out measures to put a hold on America's gun crisis. Crime has risen over 18 months across the nation as it grappled with the coronavirus outbreak. Major American cities have been witnessing alarming spikes in shootings, homicides and armed robberies. And now the U.S. president has unveiled his strategy to stem the crisis. This plan addresses ways to stem the flow of firearms used to commit violence. Biden has signaled that authorities would crack down on what he describes as the merchants of death who supply the bulk of weapons used in crimes.
Today, the department is announcing, as I just did, a major crackdown on stem the flow of guns used to commit violent crimes. It's zero tolerance for gun dealers who willfully violate key existing laws and regulations. Let me repeat, zero tolerance.
The announcement follows a meeting with a bipartisan group of city mayors and law enforcement leaders and Attorney General Merrick Garland. New measures enable jurisdictions to relocate unspent COVID-19 recovery funds. These funds can be used for new police hires, crime-fighting technology like gunshot detection systems, and expanded efforts to prosecute gun traffickers.
Background checks for purchasing a firearm are important. Ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. No one needs to have a weapon that can fire over 30, 40, 50, even up to 100 rounds, unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests or something.
9 of every 10 illegal guns found at crime scenes were sold by just 5% of the nation's gun dealers. Justifying the stricter gun laws, the Biden administration put out some figures related to the surging violence. Homicides in the first quarter of 2021 went up 24% over the same period last year. Urging Congress to act on sensible gun control legislation, Joe Biden has warned Americans that uptick in violent crimes could carry into the summer as well, and in anticipation of potential summer spikes in violent crime. The Biden administration would collaborate with 15 cities committed to using leftover pandemic funds. Now, the cities include Los Angeles, Atlanta, Baltimore, and Capital Washington.
This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. It's an American issue. We're not changing the Constitution. We're enforcing it, being reasonable. We're taking on the bad actors doing bad and dangerous things in our communities and to our country.
Racism coupled with America's gratuitous gun culture has created a potent mix for violence against minorities. The moves come across as a long-due exemplary action needed to build America, deterrence in America. And WION correspondent Kate Fisher is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. for more on this story. Kate, thank you for joining us. Now, Biden has signaled the authorities would crack down on what he describes as the merchants of death. And as I mentioned earlier, the supply is from only a bulk of people, and these weapons are then used in crimes. Could you explain what this would entail and how these measures would help?
Yeah, that's right. The president is essentially saying that the way to curtail this rise in violent crime is by stopping the guns being so readily available to the criminals. So, for example, one of the things these new measures does is give the authorities permission, if you like, and more powers to crack down on rogue gun dealerships. These are gun shops which sell firearms to people without doing the correct background checks, or sell them to people who don't have a gun license, and so on, because the Biden administration says it's often these weapons that end up being used in crimes. It's also giving authorities more support and money to look at the problem of trafficking guns between states.
Yes, Kate, I was just going to come to that I believe requires some clarity. Now, Biden has urged Congress to act on sensible gun control legislation. What exactly does that mean? Can we expect stricter measures in place for acquiring guns, even for those who do have license? And can we expect a reduce in sale and purchase of firearms?
Well, Joe Biden campaigned on this message that he wanted to bring gun control to the US, common sense measures, as you say.
Right.
But he has been struggling to do so, as he has done with so much of his agenda, because of the very narrow majority he has in the Congress and the fact that he doesn't have that those 10 extra votes in the Senate to
Right.
give him the ability to act without Republican support. And of course, Republicans are very anti any kind of gun control measures. They are heavily funded by the National Rifle Association, and it doesn't go down well with their voters. So they have Joe Biden struggled to do anything through Congress, which is why he's turning to executive orders, these measures that he can do without the support of Congress.
Right.
But of course, they only last for as long as his presidency.
All right, Kate, thank you so much for joining us with all those updates. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.